Hey there everybody, Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another edition of our RANT series by popular demand, part 2 of Overplayed Songs We Never Need to Hear Again. I'm actually kind of surprised at how popular that video was. You guys seem to love it. A whole bunch of you were like, can we have more? Can we have more? And suggested all sorts of songs that maybe I didn't mention, and some of them were really good. And the more I thought about it, it's like, there's so many songs that we've all heard a million times that we never really need to hear again, that are just played to death, played out, just no matter what the setting, whether it's radio, MTV, weddings, family barbecues, your own playlist, or whatever, satellite, commercials, there's just tunes that throughout our lives we have heard enough and either never need to hear again, or maybe, once or twice a year is okay, but that's about it, right? So if you missed my first part, go check that out. That's a precursor to this, but I jotted down a bunch of others that I want to have a little fun with and talk about, and, I'm sure some of you will agree. First on my list, I can't believe I forgot this on the other episode, and I love this band with everything in me. One of my top 2 favorite bands of all time. This band was such a life-changing game changer for me. It started me on this path of music, even more so than, I was a young Kiss fan at like age 10, right? So that really is the band that got me started. However, it wasn't until I first heard Black Sabbath like 2 or 3 years later that that was it. Completely changed me forever. But I never need to hear Paranoid ever again. I love Black Sabbath so much, but if I never heard Paranoid again, I'd be quite okay with it. All right? Ironman to an extent also. But I can every so often listen to Ironman and be like, okay, but man, Paranoid? Ugh. First of all, it's not a great song. I know for a lot of people, Paranoid's like the greatest Black Sabbath song ever, but I never thought it was even close. It's probably the first like metal song I ever learned to play on guitar, like start to finish. But man, that was like so many years ago, and it's just like, you go to see Sabbath. Well, obviously they're not playing live anymore; they're now retired. But every time you go see Sabbath, they gotta play it. It's always going to be the last song. It's just like, oh man, again. And what kills me is like I can't tell you how many times I've gone to see Sabbath over the years, especially like the last like decade or so when they would come out and would do the Ozzy reunion and what have you. And you get like people in the parking lots of whatever the venue is listening to like Paranoid and Ironman. Yeah, going to see Sabbath. It's like, you're going to hear it. You've heard these songs a million times, and you're going to hear it again in a couple hours. There's nothing else in the Black Sabbath discography that you would want to listen to get you fired up before a Sabbath show? And you got to play Paranoid? Ugh, I don't get it. Whatever. Next on the list, this is fresh because I just saw this band a couple days ago in Bethel, New York. Judas Priest, Breaking the Law, and Living After Midnight. I'm sorry, guys. I love Priest. I love him. But I just have no use for either one of those songs anymore. I just don't. I don't have any use for them. And you got another thing coming is close behind. Those 3 tunes. It's just amazing how there's so many people out there that just, those are the greatest songs a Priest ever did. And I'm like, come on. They've got so many other songs that are better. I mean, I was sitting there at the concert the other night, and you got all these people. Priest is playing great new songs and some real old classics off the old albums. And you got people sitting on their hands, doo-doo-doo, yeah, this is okay. But as soon as they play Living After Midnight or Breaking the Law, woo! It's like time to go berserk. Ugh, Jesus, don't get it. Speaking of Ozzy, all right, Mama, I'm Coming Home. One of our viewers pointed this out, and I couldn't agree more. Yeah, oof, that is not a great song at all. Ozzy solo, they played that to death back in the day when that first came out. Even now, you go to listen to like Sirius XM and you listen to like, Ozzy's Boneyard. Man, that song pops up a couple times a day if you listen to it for a while. Oosh, not a big fan of that tune. Never was. What else we got here? More pop stuff. Chicago. You're the Inspiration. I love Chicago. I really do. Love them a lot, especially their older stuff from the 70s. But man, the turn of the 80s, they became like a just hit machine, cranking out one pop ballad after another. You're the Inspiration. Oof. Like, kind of a cool song when it first came out. If you were dating a woman or if you were a woman dating a guy, and that was kind of a cool song, right? Cool, like, relationship song. But all these years later, phew, they can keep it. We talked about Yes in the other episode. One of you pointed out another song that I definitely should have discussed, and I'm going to. Seen All Good People. First of all, big hit when it first came out, right? But not very representative of what Yes is all about. However, there are people who latched onto that song and, go see Yes live, whether you're seeing Steve Howe's band or whether you're seeing, Anderson and Wakeman and Rabin, and that song, they rip into that song and everybody's like, woohoo, dancing around and singing, and I'm like, I just heard it too many times. No desire. I've seen Yes easily over 20 times in my life. And if they drop that from the set list tomorrow, either band, whatever, I'd be totally okay with that. Totally okay with that. Again, not a terrible song, but man, I don't need to hear it again. Metallica, Enter Sandman. First of all, when I was a huge, huge Metallica fan in the 80s, I can still to this day listen to anything off of Kill 'Em All, Ride the Lightning, Master of Puppets, and Injustice for All. Those are classics. Great, great heavy metal albums from the 80s. When the Black Album came out in, what was that, 90, 91, I forget the year, I was pretty into it because I was still a pretty big fan. But over the years, that album has I have lost interest in that album totally. And, the load and reload nonsense that came after it, forget that. But, I remember when Enter Sandman was played everywhere and everybody was into it. That was like a metal anthem for that kind of time period. But man, that tune just does not age well for me. I know there are still people that love it, but I don't. I don't ever need to hear Enter Sandman again. Sorry, guys. Here's a funny one. Bodies by Drowning Pool. You remember how kind of cool this was at the height of the nu metal era. And I remember my son was just becoming a teenager, and that tune came out, and he was totally into it. It's like, oh, let the bodies hit the floor. Yeah, I took him to see that band live, and everybody went berserk during that song. But quickly, you started to realize what a fucking ridiculous tune that is. And it's funny because I recently saw a video clip of friends of mine who had a party recently, and there was a video posted on social media of a bunch of them listening to Bodies during this recent little gathering. And I'm just like, man, people my age are still playing this every now and then? Ugh. I've had enough of Bodies. Forget it. What else we got here? Pink Floyd, Another Brick in the Wall, Part 2. Heard it a million times. I love Pink Floyd, but you all know my opinion on The Wall in general. I'm not a huge fan of The Wall. I find The Wall very overrated. I know a lot of you are going to be like, oh, but that's one of the greatest concept albums of all time. Pink Floyd's greatest album of all time. Yeah, I never thought so. I would much rather hear any of the Pink Floyd albums that came before it than The Wall. Granted, there are a couple great, great tunes on The Wall. But for my money, you can count them on one hand. The rest of it just bores the crap out of me. And Another Brick in the Wall, fun when it first came out. It's got a tasty Gilmore guitar solo, but I don't ever get to the other again. What else we got here? How You Remind Me by Nickelback. The less said about Nickelback, the better. The better. Lynyrd Skynyrd's Sweet Home Alabama. Now, so I talked about Freebird on the other show, and I probably should have mentioned Sweet Home Alabama then too. I love and adore Lynyrd Skynyrd, but man, Sweet Home Alabama is just, don't need to go there really anymore. My wife still really likes it a lot, so I do have to listen to it, but whatever. Satisfaction by the Rolling Stones. Again, I love the Stones, but man, that album has been done to death for 50 years now? It's like enough already. Here's one. 2 Minutes to Midnight by Iron Maiden. I love Maiden. I go see Maiden almost every time they come around. Love the album it comes off of. But man, if they decided tomorrow that they were going to drop 2 Minutes to Midnight from their set list, I would be very happy with it. I know that would make millions of people, other people, very disappointed. I was never a huge fan of 2 Minutes to Midnight. I don't know what it is. For Maiden, it's kind of a simple song. Yeah, it's kind of anthemic. It's sing along, and so many people love it. I never really warmed up to it that much. There's so many better songs that Maiden has from that time period. So, yeah, not into it. The Cars, Here She Comes Again. Eesh. I dig the Cars. One of the best like pop rock bands of the 80s, but I don't know, that way the late 70s too. But that tune just, all I can keep thinking about is that terrible MTV video. You know, MTV videos ruined a lot of these songs, guys. That's a fact. How many of these tunes, like in the 80s, did you know, when you heard them on FM rock radio, you were kind of like, oh, it's pretty cool. You know, you hear it every so often when you're driving around. But then, man, you started watching MTV, and they would put together these god-awful videos for these songs. And the video itself just ruins the song because the videos are just so damn ridiculous. I'm telling you. Journey, Open Arms. No, I'm not going to put the other obvious song here, which I know a lot of you pointed out. I don't mind Don't Stop Believin', believe it or not. I probably heard that song more than any other song in my life, but for some reason, I know it's weird. I know some of you are going to be like, no way. I can still listen to Don't Stop Believin'. I don't know what it is, but man, Open Arms. Sorry, I'd much rather hear Faithfully any day than Open Arms. I just was never a huge fan of the Open Arms song. Sorry, all you ladies out there. I know you all love it. Europe. No, I'm not going to say The Final Countdown. I know that's a tune I don't need to hear too often, but that's kind of like a guilty pleasure for me, even though it is totally not representative of what Europe is all about. I don't hate Final Countdown. It's silly, yeah. It's for Europe. It's a totally silly song, but for me, Carrie. Ugh, just forget that one. Drippy ballad from a great band. And I'm going to say this again. I said this on the Guilty Pleasure show. If all you know from Europe is Carrie and The Final Countdown, and you have discounted them for years, you need to go back. Forget that Final Countdown album, although there's some pretty good tunes on that album. Go listen to any of the albums before and almost all the albums after that, and specifically anything they've done the last 10 years. Because Europe is a kick-ass hard rock band. And they've got some really darker, heavy material that I think any heavy music fan would love. But just forget about The Final Countdown and Carrie. Trust me on this one. Go and do the investigative work. What else we got here? Angel by Aerosmith. You know, you could probably put any late 80s, 90s, 2000s Aerosmith on this list, and I'd be quite okay with dumping all of them off the side of a fucking building. And they were such a great band back in the day. I don't know what happened to these guys. They have just been incapable of putting out an interesting album or any interesting songs other than maybe one or two here and there for the last, 25 years? Come on, guys. I know you got it in you. Panama by VH, Van Halen. I really like Van Halen a lot, but man, that Panama song I never got was so great about it. I still don't like it to this day. Never need to hear it again. Better Man by Pearl Jam. This is a band that, like everybody else when Pearl Jam and Nirvana and Alice in Chains and Soundgarden first hit the scene in the early 90s, that first album, 10, real popular, a lot of gems on that album. They followed that up with a couple other albums that were fairly popular, but not as much as the first, and Better Man was one of those singles, and I know you don't hear it a lot these days, but I'm talking about back in the day, I heard a ton, and I got tired of that one real quick. Never need to hear it again. Whitney Houston, I Want to Dance with Somebody. No issues with Whitney Houston. Very talented singer. Great loss. And she was a mess at the end, but what a tragic loss. A lady with a fantastic voice and a ton of really good pop and dance tunes, but man, that is not one of them. Overplayed to death. I never need to hear it again. Something more recent. Florida Georgia Line, Cruise. They're not a bad band. They got some really catchy kind of country pop tunes, but these guys seem to have it in their head that they gotta inject a little rap into their country and all this other stuff, and quite frankly, most of the music just isn't country. I don't know what the hell it is. Cruise is just like they're trying to be hip, and it's just, I don't know, I just can't listen to that tune anymore. I like some of their other stuff, but man, I just, Stained, it's been a while. Ugh. Can throw in a lot of Linkin Park tunes in there as well. This, a lot of that kind of new metal era stuff has just not aged well at all. So, man, that's my list, I guess. There you go. 15 minutes of more songs I never need to hear again. There's probably a lot of you out there that you don't need to hear them again. As with the last time, if you got stuff that you think I might have forgotten or songs that you really don't like at all and you never need to hear again just because they've been overplayed to death in whatever medium, put them in the comments. Happy to hear them and take a look at them, and I'll either agree with you or disagree, but like I said, it doesn't really matter because everybody has their own opinions on this kind of stuff, right? Some of us have listened to radio more than others. Some of us are a little older. Some of us are a little younger. We've had more exposure to certain mediums where these songs are constantly in rotation. And so it's I had plenty of people who are a little younger than me, who saw some of my picks on the first episode, and they were flabbergasted because, I never hear that song. I haven't heard any of those songs ever. I don't even know where they are. And it's just my first thing is well, where have you been for the last 30 years? But then again, it depends on what age group you're in, right? So everybody's different. There are certainly, I saw some people mention tunes from the last 10, 15 years that probably get played constantly on VH1 and, hit radio, pop radio, hit satellite stations that play all that kind of stuff. And I don't listen to that stuff, so I wouldn't know those brand new last decade songs in the pop field because I really stay as far away as I can from that. And then every now and then you hear it playing at the gym when I don't have my headphones in or something like that. But I know that, and or whatever. So anyway, this is fun. This is on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. Of course, we're here on the Mighty YouTube as often as possible. Got all sorts of good stuff coming up. If you want to see me do more silly stuff like this, I can do it. I actually, another one I'm thinking of doing based on a recommendation from one of our viewers is, and I think I'm going to mention this on a previous show, is to look at some of those really popular, best-selling classic albums by, classic bands where there were multiple hits or well-known songs on them, but to talk about one or two of the songs that nobody seems to remember that are also really good on that album but kind of forgotten. Kind of a cool concept, right? So in other words, if we were to talk about Black Sabbath's Paranoid album, instead of, obviously we're not going to talk about War Pigs, Ironman, Paranoid, maybe not even Fairies Wear Boots, but Hand of Doom. Okay, pretty cool. Or Led Zeppelin 4. Going to talk about maybe Battle of Evermore or something, When the Levee Breaks. Shit that people don't normally focus on when they look at these classic albums. So that's what I'm going to do. That's coming up real soon. We've also got that, my favorite top jazz fusion albums of the 70s, working on compiling that together. That's going to be an epic show. And we got some band retrospectives coming up and more new product reviews. Got some really good stuff. Got to talk about the new Redemption. And what else I got over there? The new Live Yes album with Anderson, Raven, and Wakeman. All sorts of good stuff. New Soft Machine. All sorts of good stuff coming up. So stay tuned. www.seatranquility.org. Take care, guys. Bye.